But they're not real migrants.
Okay, let's. Can you guys just keep quiet and keep working? Yeah, because we need to do the diary. Sure. Or should we do it? A video diary for July 1st, 2001. We have removed one floor level in or layer here in feature 771, which is on top of platform 169, and then in doing that we disclosed that in its earlier phase this feature was much larger than in its later phase, and so now we have not just this rectangular basin-like feature, but we have an addition towards the east of it, a roundish part that probably goes all the way around, but we have to uncover its southern edge completely. And so we are basically removing another floor on top of 169, and that's how we came to discover that. In the former space 158, we continued excavating in the central space, and so there is more plaster that's connected to this plastered floor, and a roundish forms of plaster that go up here towards the north. There is some floor level here and one below, and there seems to be an edge to the floor that runs like that, and this is the line of a big cracking that we had all along in the upper floor levels that we could see. So we don't know whether this was the original floor edge in this part of the house, or whether it has something to do with the later constructed screen wall that was put in the cut, which was made right here in front of the central space. We will know that pretty soon. And we're still keeping in place the old feature 750, which is the cut for the storage basket. The basket is gone, but this gold base is still in place. And we'll take that out at the end of excavating this space. And then we have come on an earlier floor in the northern part of this central space of 158, where we see the floor that is most likely on the same level as this white floor on this end of 158 where I'm standing, but it's totally different character. It's totally different materials that we use. There is no plaster over there, so that will be like dirty floor, and this where I'm standing will be clean floor. And it is not surprising that that floor is such and different from this one, because we had the floor above that was also so-called dirty floor, made of brownish yellow clay in that same area, whereas we had white one in the area where I'm standing. And also the packing in that whole area, northern area, was very different from the packing down here. Not very different, actually. They shared both this massive packing, but on top of that massive packing, there was a special layer that was present there in the north, next to the featured little wall 623, and was not present in this part where I'm standing. And it did seem different at also the whole area from the rest of the central space. So yeah, we have that floor, which is a gray floor. It's pretty smooth, but it's really soft and moist, and there are a lot of salts on top of it. We can see the white dots, and that's that. And then we are still battling with the little wall 623, which seems to have ended right up here somewhere, sitting on top of the bricks. But then on the other hand, it's not entirely so, because it seems to be also running deeper down and sitting on this floor. And that situation is complicated because on the other side of the same wall, we can clearly see that the wall is sitting on the packing up here, which is much higher than the floor on this side. So that's a problem, which we will deal with. And then if you come, Jason, if you come here, we can just talk a little bit about this little space and then go to the other side of the house. In the very northwest of the house, we started removing the packing a thick layer of packing that we had sitting here since the last year, basically. We haven't touched it this year until now. So we have started working on it, and we can see that the packing is continuing, even though a good 5, if not 10 centimeters in some places were removed yesterday. And obviously there are traces of a white plastered floor that was cut or truncated in prehistory. It seems to have run all along on top here, but it was cut and destroyed. And we still we are coming on top of these big burn chunks of ovens that we had in the pit, in the cut, and that we are still seeing below the surface, and we see in the profiles of the cut. So we are probably arriving on top of that stuff here, everywhere. There are also some pieces that look like remains of oven, these roundish forms that could be oven superstructure. And there are a lot of pieces that had elaborate plaster decoration, it seems, but they were reused later on for packing. And we are also exposing these bricks, and it's obvious that the bricks run up to this point on the west wall, and then something else was happening in there in the corner. We exposed the earlier plaster on the north floor that goes with most likely with the floor that we will discover below. And that's about it in this area. Okay, now we have to go to that kitchen area and then the platform. And in the kitchen area, we are removing the floors in feature 775. Actually, we had removed packing, completely packing in this area. Now disclose the edge of a big oven of the same type as 646 was. And we are looking at these hearts, at a series of hearts that is here in the middle of 775, and it seems, it's almost certain at this point that the oven was, well, I'm not sure, later or earlier. I think it was later than the hearts, because we have the floor here going up the edge, and the floor that goes up to the edge of these hearts. And what I think has happened, in this area, there was a prehistoric cut in the floor, these lines, in a shallow cut in which they started building the hearts. So presumably the oven was in use, not presumably, but most certainly this oven, that is feature 779, was in use during the floors that we can see here on platform 169 and in the center of the western part of the house, and most of the other platforms that are exposed at the moment. So this oven goes with that phase, and oven 646 went with the upper phase. So when this oven was not being used anymore, that's when the cut was made here in the middle of 775, and then these hearts were being built. And we can see that the hearts have cut the floor of the oven itself, and partially this edge of the oven, and then the whole other side of the oven was completely destroyed by other activities. And what else became clear yesterday, that in the kitchen you have to, can you come to this end so you can see these lines that I will be pointing to? Like that. Okay, so now we can see that in the earlier period, the kitchen was roundish on its northern side. We have this round corner here, and then we have lines of floors that run like that, and like that, and then we have a round corner on this end, and then the edge of the kitchen went like that. So it's a roundish ending of the kitchen. And of course we can see also a number of floors, most of which were white originally, but then became dirty and dark colored or red burned through use in the kitchen area. And we'll have more on that later on when we do a bit of more excavating in that area. The basket from the burial in the center of the house, burial 757, thank you, was excavated yesterday by our conservator and taken down to the lab, so that is completely empty, the burial now. And then we continued excavation on platform 170, expecting to come on top of the burial cuts, and we removed the earliest layer of the sea floor on it yesterday and started going into the packing. And once we removed the top part of the packing, which was the bricky clean clay, packing clay, which is typical, we came on top of this thick layer of packing, which consists of burnt materials, which is a mixture of all sorts of things, but a lot of materials associated with burning. And that looked right on top of that packing the same kind as the one that we had here in the middle of the house when we were taking off the last of the D floor and getting at this C floor. Now that the excavation are going on in this area, we can see that some of the burnt remains almost look as though they are in situ here. But it's still not clear picture. It still could be a lot of, put a lot of deliberately packed remains of burning on the oven in such a manner that they would be flat and almost look as though they are in situ, in order to achieve a nice layer of packing on the platform and make it not too thick and yet very strong for the floor that was above. So we are still anxious to see what's going to develop on this platform, whether it's really an original little kitchen or kitchenette in the house.
Or a burialette.
Or a burial, or maybe all this burning was associated with a burial. But maybe not, because these really look like oven floors that are really positive, and this looks like another floor of another oven. And the fact that they're actually totally different and different burning indicates that they're coming from different features and they're not in situ. And then this stuff here, which is yet another floor, yet another oven. There are interesting developments in this corner. There is a hump that could, if we have a burial, this could be the place of it, I think. But of course there are many other.
Laura's sitting on her favorite.
And there is another one potentially.
Here.
Yeah. So that's going on, and it is also curious that the edge of the oven is platform is going like this. We didn't expect that. That's unusual. We don't know how to explain that at the moment. Whether it really was like a little.
Unless it's an edge which goes with something further back.
Well, it looks like it's actually coming down.
No, it's very concrete edge of the platform, but why it's going like this, like a little big bathtub, I don't know.
Or maybe that's the style in thing.
Madame, will you explain the roots corner for us?
What we did over here in this corner, feature 173, which is looking rather dreary right now. If you could move the bucket, David, move the blue bucket.
All right.
We took off in the eastern end, and in fact all across, we took off floor 7 and to see if we could see again, an outline of of the burial pit, which we're sure we can see underneath there, and came across some interesting things. One of which is like another plaster, very thin plaster floor underneath it, right on top of the packing, which goes then very deep and is full of burn material like over there. And I think it's picking up the outline of the burial pit over there, but we can also see over here that there's another line that's actually been kind of visible in this corner at least for some time. Another line of, or edge of the platform, and that would be the rim of, what are we? Probably the rim of an earlier phase of this platform. Yeah, an earlier phase of, actually no, this platform, sorry. An earlier phase of this platform. And we can see it going all along, so it's yet another configuration, an earlier one, possibly one that goes with this floor, an earlier phase of this floor that's been truncated again when they put in the D platform and the little wall and so on. And we can also see definitely cut into that is this burial pit, the soft earth. This is what we expect with a kind of, so this is definitely some kind of lid material, but it seems probably to be going underneath this floor, which is actually what we've got here are two floors of the C phase, which we knew, but we didn't realize. It's very difficult to actually distinguish them. This is another later phase of the C floor, as is this. So we've got to clean that today before we get into the burial proper. So the burial is definitely cut from the early phase of the C floor here, which is floor 7. Okay, that's it.
Okay, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and this is the dots of red paint here on the floor between the kitchen and the central space. It's a very curious place for those dots, and they seem like deliberate application rather than an accidental something. This is, of course, the place of our threshold, and therefore between the kitchen space and the central space, dirty and clean, and therefore it's a very symbolically charged area of the house, most likely. So it's not so unusual to have it there, but it would be certainly one good, one interesting and not seen so far element in decoration, if it turns out that this continues. And one more thing. We have started excavating a little additional area in our midden. And Jim, if you can just move a little bit for a second, we can show that. Thank you. So this is the little island that originally we had planned not to excavate because of our datum point, one of our datum points sitting on top, which is this red tag. But because we were able to move the datum point to a different side, we are able now to excavate in this, to the different side of the tent, to excavate this little island and then disclose the west wall. As we know, the west wall had a lot of problems through the history of this house, and there were shoring on the inside of the house, eroded bricks that were placed along the wall on the outside. Or it could be remains of a much earlier building, which then was buried by the midden later on. But it's certainly parallel with the west wall of the house. So we are going deeper here in the midden, and then we'll see. I think that's about all for today, huh? Well, let me mention two more things. Yesterday we took off the late layers of the plaster face on the south wall of the house, and so now we are seeing probably, I'm not entirely, well, no, I am sure, we are seeing the C phase wall plaster on the south face. And in our removal of the plaster yesterday, we took a good 2 to 3 centimeters of the plaster layers, in which we had quite a lot of stains, plaster that was stained with soot, and so we took sample of that and we took pictures of that, which shows that our southern end of the house was heavily used for making fire and burning and all that, which is obvious since the kitchen is there. But what's interesting also, you can stay there, you can just zoom in on what I'm going to say here. In the northern part of the house, we have here in the northwest corner, we have remains of soot on the wall of, on the plaster wall plasters. And it also goes here in the corner. So, that's a little unusual. Well, it's not really unusual.
Pretty high up as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's from the later period, that's true. But you can find it all the way down here and in here. But we'll see on this earlier plaster that we are now
Maybe it has to do with that weird
disclosing.
pit.
With a pit?
The pit there.
You mean they were making fire in the pit?
Yeah, something like that.
I would not say so, but well, that's an idea. I think that most likely all the plasters in the house were affected by soot from wherever the fireplace was. I mean, the smoke went all around the house, and here the majority of smoke kept in the southern part of the house because the fireplaces were here, but then the rest of it was traveling around, so we should find soot everywhere. One more thing, talking about soot, in the top horizons of our excavation in the E phase of the house, we had a lot of wall plasters that were different from the ones that we are seeing now, which are very moist plaster and very, very nice thin layers of black and white plaster, which is the black is from the phase with the soot on it, and the white after the soot was covered with a new layer of plaster and so forth. So these plaster, a big chunk of this plaster was found yesterday here in the packing of the center of this massive packing in the center of 158. That's very unusual. I'm very surprised by that, because that kind of wall plaster we haven't had anywhere below the E phase. So we'll have to think about how to explain that. And then in that massive packing we had a number of interesting finds, one of it which is a flint tool that was used as a polish stone tool and looks like a polished stone, but it's a flint. And then we had, what else did we have there? We had, one of these polishes that are made of sandstone, which is very flat, like another half of the similar type of tool that we had higher up in this area as well. These are new polishes, we haven't seen them before, new type. I think he had something else interesting, Harry, here, teeth, in the finds. What else did he? He had something. You had a lot of crap.
Oh, he had the molten polishing stone.
Polishing, yeah, I mentioned that.
Oh, you mentioned that. Not the flint one. But
Yeah, but the thin one, that's
Yeah,
like
okay.
a soap like it. Yeah, okay, well, that's probably all. We have said enough for today. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so we don't need to write a diary now.